employed by anybody that's turned it off. Assisting any entity and doing anything.
Oh.
Just make sure.
Fill these out.
Okay.
Did you order?
That's one you don't know.
If you did.
Nothing's showing up.
We got You got it.
I won't be surprised if Lance turned it off. So we all get fully trained.
Yeah, I'll like just like anything that sticks out to me, I'll just highlight it and I'll put a comment, but if it's just showing up on mine.
Okay, thank you. Did you sign my book?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I did.
Like, if there was anything in any of the documents that gives a question.
I think the touchscreen is off.
What was really?
Scroll.
I know
That
I've
would
been
explain
sick. I didn't tell. Oh, in fact, when I need to tell, you know, that speech thing on Saturday. I
Okay,
started
it's
feeling-
5 o'clock, and so we'd like to go ahead and call this regular scheduled meeting in the Santa Clara City Council to order. I'm Mayor Rick Rosenberg. I'd like to welcome everyone who's here tonight. We appreciate you being here. We have a full council here tonight. Councilman Ben Shakespeare, Councilwoman Janine Burton, Councilwoman Krista Hinton, Councilman David Pond, and Councilman Jarrett Wade are all here. We appreciate them being here. We'd like to begin the meeting with an opening ceremony and a pledge of allegiance. We've asked Councilman Wade to lead us in the pledge. And then the opening prayer will be offered by Linda Van Wert. She's with the Buddhist community and the St. George Interfaith Council. So welcome, Linda. We appreciate you being here. Councilman, would everyone please rise and salute the flag?
Please follow me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for the invite.
You're
Yes.
very welcome.
Let's begin and close our eyes, quiet our minds, and open our hearts. Feel the flow of your living breath. Just be here together in this precious moment with gratitude. Feel your awareness spread into the community. May we bring calm, compassion, gratitude, and wisdom into our busy lives. And may the work tonight be inspired by it. May its benefit touch many lives. And when I ring the bell, just imagine the sound spreading the prayer everywhere.
Thank you, Linda. We appreciate you being here. Okay, council, item number 3, conflicts and disclosures. Does anyone have a conflict of interest they need to disclose tonight with anything on the agenda? If there's not any, we'll go ahead and go into the working agenda. We do have a public hearing scheduled tonight. It's a public hearing to receive public input regarding a single beer permit. Applicant is Ryan Miller and Bill Brewing Company. That's you?
Zoom.
Oh, he's on Zoom.
Oh,
Ryan, can you hear us?
Should be.
Mr. Miller, can you hear us?
This is Cimarron. I'm here. I don't know if Ryan's signed in yet.
Okay. Cimarron, welcome.
Hi, I'm sorry I'm not there in person.
You're probably off some exciting place, Iceland or the islands or someplace.
I'm just in Pennsylvania right now.
Well, see what I mean? Some exciting place.
Yeah.
Can you lead the discussion, or do we need to wait for Ryan, Simran?
Ryan is on, but I was going to do a presentation about True Grit to sort of remind those council members that have been here and get the new ones up to speed on the event before Ryan talked. Looks like he's in now.
Okay, all right, go ahead whenever you're ready.
Do we have the presentation up?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. First, I just like to say again, hello. My name is Simran Chacon. I'm the race director for and founder of the True Grit Epic. You can change the slide, next slide. We began True Grit in 2011 and moved to Santa Clara City in 2015. We did it the first couple of years in a park, in Tonnequit Park, and then in a middle school, which was really not a good vibe. We continued to grow. When we brought the race over to Santa Clara, we had about 300 participants. And then we added the gravel stage event in 2019. So this year will be our 14th annual True Grit Epic. Next slide. One of the reasons that all the people love to come back is because of the vibe. Santa Clara City, you live here. It is just absolutely beautiful place to have an event, whether the trees are in full leaf or just there, the green lawn, the quaint town, and whether you're a kid or an adult or whatever, we usually have a band, and you'll see that the vibe is just so loving and happy at the end of each of the events. Just a quick breakdown. I'm going to be kind of quick, but so the total attendance that we expect this year will be about 1,050. We have 800 in our mountain bike race. That is the first weekend on the 16th, and about 250 for the second race on the 23rd. We have participants everywhere from 13 to 65, which is a blast. The race is 73% male, 22% female. 91% travel from out of the area, 26% travel from out of state, and we have this year 24 states represented and 3 foreign countries. Next slide. Hopefully you can see this, and this I wish I could guide you through, but this is our mountain bike course. So up at the top, you can see it starts out in Santa Clara. It comes down and goes through Cove Wash, and into the Green Valley DeVario area, using the BLM trails and then the Zen Trail. They do a loop there. Then they drop over into the Poppy Trail, take the Poppy Trail down into Navajo Drive, then back up to Stookie Springs, where they come back into Santa Clara and do parts of the Rim Runner and the Barrel Roll. We call it a 50, but it's actually 43 miles, but because it's such a hard course, we had to kind of back up. This race is actually the season opener for the National Ultra Endurance Series, which is as it sounds, a national series. We joined the series right before we came to Santa Clara. And in order to join the series, we had to make our race compatible with the other pro races in the other states. And ours was so hard, we had to shorten the course, but still make it compatible to all the 50s. So that's why it's called 50. The next slide is the True Grit Gravel Epic. This is just as tough and technical. So they're escorted out by Ivan Santa Clara police, traded off with St. George police down to the bottom of Navajo Drive, where they climb up to Bulldog Pass, down Bulldog Pass to Highway 91, over to Lytle Ranch Road, then Indian Springs, if you know that, over to Mataqua, down Mataqua Road, and then on the road back over. Both of these courses are known as world-class courses, and they're hosted here in Santa Clara. So does anybody have any questions right off the top of their mind about the event.
Any questions, council?
I have one. What's the typical time it takes for the racers to finish? Like, what time are you finishing up for the day on this?
So the first weekend, it is truly an all-day event. We have categories as short as 15 miles. What I showed you is the 50-mile course, but we also have people who do that twice, as 100. So we do waves in the morning that last about an hour and 15 minutes. And then the first riders start coming back in at about noon, 12:30 or 11:30 or noon, and they return all the way until 6 o'clock. So the longest race, which is 2 laps of the 50, they have 11 hours to finish. Yeah.
Wow.
And then the next weekend, they start at 9 and they have till 6 to finish. Most people take 7 hours to finish that one. So they're truly epic ultra endurance events. I have a quick 1 minute video that I'm hoping you guys can get up that I think will give you an idea of the flavor of the course. And if anybody has any questions after this plays, I can answer those. Oh, you're playing the whole video, not the snippet, but that's okay. Just play a minute of it then.
Awesome. It seems like such a key event for UConn to start off the season. So everyone's super stoked to come down from the snow and come down here and warm up, and it's a ton of fun. Just seeing everybody for the first time for the year.
Mountain bike race tests all your skills. I mean, from technical skills to your cardio. For the real fast racers, they're going to be 3.5 hours on that for 1 week. They have anyone from 3.5 hours up to, gosh, maybe 6 hours. It just depends on the skill level and what your outfit will take. A lot of people just do it, and something.
I'm super excited. This is really cool. Season opener for gravel mountain bike, and I'm excited to see where the season takes us.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
You can end it. They clicked on the full video, which is about 20 minutes long, and I'm sure you don't have 20 minutes to watch it. I just wanted to give you a quick sample of the video. And I've shared the link, so hopefully they can pass it on to you guys to watch at your leisure. There's actually, 14 years of these, and I encourage you to watch them all because they're amazing. But I wanted you to kind of see what the course looks like, what the experiences that people get when they're out there and back here at the end. Do you have any additional questions for me before I pass it over to Ryan?
Thank you, Cimarron.
Yes.
Ryan, tell us about the single beer permit.
First of all, thanks, council and everybody and Cimarron for inviting me back down for this event that we've enjoyed going to for many, many years. Love Santa Clara, love the people there, love everything that this event represents. And so as far as like the beer garden, whatnot, same as all years in the past, we'll be setting up a fenced in beer garden area. Everybody will have wristbands or some identifying marker that shows that they've had their IDs checked. So only those 21 and over are allowed into the beer garden area. Let's see, they'll have the opportunity to purchase beers inside the garden, but they can't remove beers from the garden. They can leave and come back with food if they like. But yeah, it's a pretty easy, pretty straightforward setup. So if there's any questions you have, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions for Ryan, council? This is something that we've done for many years and it's always worked out well. public safety, don't have an officer here tonight, but they recommend doing it this way than not having the license because it's easier for them to enforce and to keep track of things. So, and it's been fairly successful in the past. So any questions for Ryan?
Is the beer garden located just next to the park? It's not on city property, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
It's on Steve Haven's property next to the city property. So, okay, any other questions, council? If not,
Will it be open during the whole time, or is it just when people are coming back towards the end? Sorry, my bad.
Ryan, what are the hours on the garden itself?
I'd have to look at the permit application again. I believe it's like 11 to 6. Maybe Sim can remember as well. But yeah, we're open during the race, not just when people get back, because we quite honestly we don't even know when people get back.
Yeah.
Some people, don't even finish. They just like a mechanical issue, and then they have family there, spouses that are rooting them on to hang out and listen to music, get food, and so yeah, we're open for the whole time basically.
It opens about at the same time that the food trucks open. So that there is food to purchase at the same time. Usually it's noon, that they get rolling. We don't start at 9 a.m. Yeah, it starts at noon, like I said, because most people, and it's open both Friday and Saturday of each weekend. The hours are a little bit shorter because we have 1,000 people that come on Friday for packet pickup, and a lot of them would prefer to have their meal and their beer the day before because they're so exhausted the day after, they just want to go home and sleep.
Makes sense.
Okay. Any other questions, council? Okay, guys, let me open the public hearing and ask anyone who has come to address the council and offer public input regarding the single beer permit application. Give you the opportunity to come to the mic. Not seeing anybody, so we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Council, at this time, I'd like to jump down to general business, item 1. This is discussion and action to consider approval of a beer permit for the True Grit race. The applicant is Ryan Miller with Anvil Brewing Company in Cimarron, Chicon with True Grit. You guys have heard the presentation. You've heard the public comment. Is there any additional discussion relative to this item? If not, I'd look for a motion.
Mayor, I'll make that motion that we approve a single beer permit for the True Grit race with the applicant Ryan Miller, Anvil Brewing DBA, and Cimarron Chicon with True Grit as presented.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion by Ben and a second by Krista to approve the beer permit for the True Grit race as presented. Any question on that motion, council? Let's do roll call on this one. Ben?
Aye.
Janine?
Aye.
Krista?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Jarrett?
Aye.
It passes unanimously. Thank you, guys. We appreciate you getting on tonight and good luck with the event.
Thank you.
Council.
I have one last request. We always love to have a council member come at our opening ceremony for the event, particularly on the 16th, to say an introduction to those 800 visitors that are coming to the community. So if you can talk amongst yourself and get with Ryan and let me know if anybody would like to participate this year, we would love to have you there.
Okay, we will do it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Simran.
Bye.
Okay, going back to the working agenda, under item A, the consent agenda. You have before you, council, the claims and minutes from the January 24th, 2004 regular city council meeting, the minutes from the executive session on January 24th, and the minutes from the January 25th combined city council meeting with Ivan City Council, and the claims through January 10th of 2024. Also, the calendar of events, our next city council work meeting is next Wednesday, the 21st. We've got a regular city council meeting on the 28th and a regular city council meeting on March 13th. Is there any questions on the minutes or the claims, any changes that need to be made?
I have a question about March.
Okay,
Aren't we going to be gone on the 13th? In DC?
Yes, those who are going to the Congressional Summit, which is, I think, yeah, everybody but Ben and the mayor are going, so we will actually
I
need to,
could cover.
need to cancel.
We got this.
Cancel the 13th.
Mayor and I will cover, right?
so yeah, you probably want to cancel that meeting, maybe schedule another special meeting. We'll see what the schedule is.
Yeah, we could move on to maybe the first Wednesday in March.
All right. So just make that for a future agenda, Chris, to cancel that meeting and set up another one. Any other comments, questions? Okay, I would look for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
A second.
Got a motion by Jarrett and a second by Dave to approve the consent agenda as presented, knowing that we won't be meeting on March 13th. Any question on that motion, council? This is a money item with the bills. Roll call, Jarrett?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Krista?
Aye.
Janine?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Ayes have it 5-0. Thank you, council. Going back to under general business, item number 2 is discussion and action to consider approval of an agreement for professional services through West Code and Consultants, WC3, to continue using their services third-party plan review agency. Cody?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Happy Valentine's Day. There's only a few other people I'd rather spend my evening with. However, yes, as you introduced, Mr. Mayor, this agenda item is a professional service agreement with West Coast Consultants, also known as WC3. We want to continue using their service as third-party plan review. Currently, WC3 reviews commercial and solar applications. Santa Clara City has used WC3 for 7 years and has not been in contract. This contract outlines the scope of services, compensation, timelines, performance, and clarifies licensing and insurance. The pricing in the contract is the same as the fees we are currently paying. We're not obligated to WC3 through this contract. We can shop and use other firms if we'd like. All the fees that are charged are pass-through fees to the applicant. The contract also offers a clear direction for termination for both parties. The contract can be terminated without cause and with a simple 15 days notice. This agreement has been reviewed by City Legal Matt Entz, and he has approved the services as presented. Any questions for me?
Questions for Cody? Yeah.
I have how often do you use them?
I use them on large commercial, and then right now we're using them on every solar application.
Any other questions, council? I think we've been pretty happy with them, haven't we, Cody?
Yeah, they've done a good service for the city. They're easy to work with. They're available, and I like that. They're very responsive for us.
And I think most cities have gone to some third party to fill when things get busy. It just allows so much flexibility to the city. You know, you can send larger projects, they'll hold all the licensing for projects, or if you just get busy, it allows you to just keep things moving along. So yeah, it looks good.
Okay. There's no questions. I look for motion.
I can make that motion. I move that we approve the agreement for professional services through West Code Consultants, WC3, to continue their service as a third-party plan review agency as presented.
I'll second it.
Got a motion by Jarrett and a second by Janine to approve the agreement for professional services with West Coast Code Consultants, WC3, as presented. Any question on that motion, council? Let's go ahead and do roll call just for the fun of it. Jarrett?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Krista?
Aye.
Janine?
Hi.
Ben?
Aye.
Ayes have it, 5-0. Thank you, council. Item number 3, this is the Historic District Committee, the special committee that we formed to look at the new guidelines. Update, Mimi McKenna is here with us tonight. She is the chair of this special committee. This committee is working on the guidelines and will present them to the Heritage Committee and then the Planning Commission and eventually to the City Council. I've asked her to come tonight and with Jim's help, kind of give us an update on where the committee's at with it, what they put together and how the process is going.
Hi, thanks. Glad to be here. Can you hear me, everybody? Okay. I thought I'd give you a summary quickly and then we can go through the survey and talk about what we are working on currently. So far, we've met 5 times. We met once in December, 3 times in January, once in February, and plan to meet again in February, and then 2 times in March or more if needed. Some of the highlights, great committee to work with. Everybody except one has attended almost all of the meetings and put in the time needed to be a contributing member of the committee. We're grateful for that. At the beginning, I asked that the city put together kind of a booklet to help with some ideas. It includes Salt Lake Commercial and Residential Historic District Guidelines, Midway Commercial Guidelines, Heber City Commercial Guidelines, and then Santa Clara's current Historic District Guidelines and Santa Clara's codes regarding the Historic District. And so we've used that in the past weeks for various topics that we're discussing, and the committee can use that as a resource to study and get some ideas of what other cities have done. Yeah, we've taken it little pieces. It's not as bad as you think once you put the tabs in and then you can see what it is. But I think it's been helpful. So our first order of business was in January to put a survey together. We wanted it to be brief. It was only 10 questions. It was not scientific. It was just to get an overall view of what the citizens thought about the historic district in Santa Clara. Christelle did an awesome job of putting it together. It went out as a flyer. I think everyone received one. It looked like this. Went to, I think, every household in Santa Clara, including the rental properties, I think, the Airbnbs. And so it was sent to over 2,000 residences, and we had 592 respondents, which I thought was good. So now, if you'd like, we can go through the questions and a brief overview of people's responses. Are there any questions so far before we do that?
On the survey, I did have a question.
Yes.
A person could take it over and it was.
Yeah, it was
wasn't
because of the
limited.
time limit. We didn't feel like we had time to be super scientific, and we're not using the answers to make really specific decisions. It was just an overall view of how do people feel about the historic district. And yeah, if someone wanted to take it 500 times, then maybe we only had 92 respondents, but I don't think that's the case.
They'd have to have 500 different phone numbers to do
They
that.
would, yeah. Christelle built into it so that each device could only reply once.
Okay.
So
Someone had asked me that and I didn't try. I was like, I didn't even think about that, but
yeah, each device could only reply once.
Okay.
I mean, it wasn't perfect, but again, it wasn't, designed to be a scientific thing. It was just a general overview of people's opinions about topics in the historic district. But good question.
And I think we got a pretty good response. That shows about 25-30% response, which is good. A lot of times surveys are less than 20%. So we feel like we got a good response if you take into account the short-term rentals and all of those different homes as well.
Yeah. Any other questions before we move on?
I was just really impressed with the postcard and how it went out and how it looked, and it was just inviting to actually do it. So
It was, I
appreciate that.
agree. It was all Christelle. She did a great job. Okay, so let's move on to the first question then. How important is it to you that the Santa Clara Historic District be preserved? Over 80% extremely important, very important. So I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Question 2, should Santa Clara require the new residential and remodel residential buildings in the historic district follow a code regarding architectural design, size, and scale? And again, you know, over 80% strongly agree or, excuse me, or agree. Next slide. Question 3, should Santa Clara require that new commercial buildings in the historic district follow a code regarding architectural design, size, and scale? Again, over 80% agree or strongly agree. How important is it to you to maintain the continuity of buildings and landscaping in the Santa Clara district? Again, strongly agree, very important, over 80%. Would you support new businesses in the Santa Clara Historic District? And this one, more wanted to support than strongly support, which was okay. But still the majority would support new business. What types of new business would you support in the Santa Clara Historic District? And it kind of lent towards, first of all, restaurants, and then small mom and pop type, with professional services and offices being lower down. And where it says others, please specify, we did have people that responded. So I don't know if you want me to go through and read all those, or if you have looked at this before. We don't need to go through all of them.
There's
But
some fun comments.
yeah, some of them were interesting.
Yeah. I wanted
But
to-
overall, the idea was people didn't want chains, they didn't want big box, they wanted small town mom and pop type of businesses in the historic district. So moving on, but yeah, you can go through and read, and some didn't want any, so all kinds of different responses there. If business in the Santa Clara Historic District were encouraged to extend their hours into the evening, for example, from 5 to 10 p.m., would you support these businesses? And again, you can see the results. Some would, some wouldn't. So that was just interesting. And we thought that might be helpful for the city in like courting what kind of businesses you want in the historic district. If it's a business that's going to primarily be open in the evening, that would be good information to have. Question number 8, if a historical home in the Santa Clara Historic District is in disrepair, what should be the course of action by city officials to preserve the home? And again, it's hard. This was not a perfect question, but my take on it is a lot of the responses were that, if people typed in, don't tell me what to do with my property. And I understand that. And people say that, but yet they reply, over 80% are replying, they want guidelines. They want continuity in the historic district. So take it, for what it's worth. Not quite sure totally what to do with that question, but Jim, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I think, scroll back up to the top,
Yeah.
Rob. And so go back to the question. So, the disrepair, some of the comments we received, just leave us alone. Don't get into our business. And we see some others say, if it falls in disrepair, the city should enforce and make them meet code. And then it also talks about maybe there were some people that agreed that maybe someone should sell to keep the home. If someone was willing to buy that home to invest and bring it back to what it was, maybe there's some cases there as well. But I think it's kind of a mix of leave us alone, or, okay, maybe there could be some help. They talked about programs, that's kind of hard. Kim Campbell talked about that a little bit. He's our architect, our consultant that's involved in the committee. He's one of only 6 architects registered in the state for historic preservation. So we're lucky to have him here in Southern Utah. So he's on our committee. And he said St. George has done some of this, but the amounts of money are pretty small sometimes. There really isn't a lot out there to help people with their home and renovate. So really it has to be a labor of love a lot of times, because the funds just aren't available. There are some bigger cities that have programs. You've got You've got different housing, some cities up north have housing departments where they help people out with affordable housing, but then there's also historical preservation elements to that. I don't see that we really have that here in Washington County as a whole. The only one I know of is St. George, and again, the monies are very limited and small. So this would be some type of program through the state. I don't know what that program would be or could be to help people out as needed. We just don't know. That's something that have to be explored down the line.
So a question on this, just to be clear, this would be homes deemed historical or under the historic registry.
Yes, and we have 8 homes currently in Santa Clara that are on the National Historic Registry.
Okay.
But then it also refers in the guidelines in the general plan, I think, that there are landmark homes, but I don't know if those have actually ever been identified.
Right.
And Mandy Gubler is also on the Heritage Commission with me. She's on this committee as well. And we have discussed that might be something that the Heritage Commission can take on in future is, making a registry of what homes are deemed landmark homes. What homes do we really not want to see fall into such disrepair that they're beyond help? Because we have some homes along the main street that from the outside look pretty good, but we're finding out that on the inside, they're really, really far gone. And we just have to decide as a community and as a city council, I guess, what homes do we want to try and preserve? And we've talked about, the Heritage Commission could also have part of their responsibilities researching and finding out information that would be helpful to the owners of these homes, how they could do, how they could pay for renovations, how just become a resource for them. So that's something that we could put on the agenda for a later date, maybe.
Well, another item we've talked about with Kim is our granaries. Our granary, we have quite a few. And he said they have only 17 or 18 in St. George that are on their register, and we have at least half that. I mean, we've got a good amount. Maybe Mary, the exact number, but those are things that need to be preserved as well. Those outbuildings that were part of kind of that historic significance of the area. But I think what's hard for us, we talk about HUD, the Housing and Urban Development, we talk about CDBG, we talk about whether we meet those program requirements or not. We don't. And a lot of the stuff I know of up north in the Salt Lake Valley, there are communities that have challenges, and there's monies available to help those communities in need because they meet those CDBG requirements. And a lot of times it is older housing. In the case of Salt Lake City, like Rose Park, Glendale, some of those real downtown areas, if you're familiar, there's a lot of need there. We don't really meet that niche where we have that identified need. And I think that's hard for Washington County because I don't see a lot of programs like this that people are asking about available.
Well, and on that, the reason I ask that is because I think the question for a lot of people automatically think historicals after 50 years. And so looking at that, there may have been some that answered thinking there's a lot more homes on our downtown that are deemed historical, when in fact our guidelines are 1935 or before, or what has been deemed historical, which, like you said, is 8 under our registry.
Mm-hmm.
And we have some really neat buildings like the Merc, right? And because they're not using it the way it was traditionally used as a live work or, the Merc, a commercial retail, the state won't allow it, to be, have that plaque because they're using it as a home.
Yeah, my point on that is some of the answers may have been skewed a little bit because of the question, thinking, wait a minute. Well, now you've got the heavy-handed government going to tell me how to, when in the reality is we have a very, very few that would qualify under this.
Well, and in reality, this question is not necessarily beneficial to what we're trying to do on this committee currently.
Yeah.
Because what we're trying to do is revise the Santa Clara Historic District guidelines, mainly to include new commercial building. And this doesn't necessarily apply to that. But we just thought it would be interesting to hear people's responses, and we'll, here it is for city information, use it.
But this is where the rubber will hit the road.
It
for
is,
all of us,
it is.
Because this question is what's going to drive it.
Mhm.
You've got the government on one side telling us, and then you've got property rights on the other. So that's,
I agree, Ben, but that's what I'm saying. If you
Yeah.
look at this question, you might think people are only pro property rights, but all the other answers indicate otherwise. You know, they might say, oh, don't tell me what to do, but boy, my neighbor better keep that property up, and I don't want a big building built next to me, and I want it to look.
that was my point exactly.
Yeah, so
It's-
you kind of have to take
I-
it with a little bit of a grain of salt, you know? So
Well, Sarah, I
anyway,
have a question. What
Yeah.
they- Sorry. So what, I'm gonna just whisper.
yeah, I can hear you.
What makes it consider a landmark in the difference of historic and landmark?
That is what we need to decide as a city. Because in the historic district guidelines, it references landmark, but it doesn't say what the landmark homes are. It doesn't give, oh, this address is a landmark home. It doesn't give a list. That's something that's never been compiled. So that's something that I would like to see done. And, you know, the Heritage Commission, that seems a logical
Right.
way to do it. We have great resources. Sherry Anderson has done a lot of work. I know Denise Webster has done a lot of work on compiling those lists, compiling the history. And we've also discussed, which we can get to in just a second, but that information can be really beneficial to someone that is wanting to either renovate a home for a business or build something new. If they know what was on that property, what the history was there, what that home, you know, who that home belonged to, what that family did, I think that starts to make them think of it as more than just a dollar sign. It starts to make them think, boy, this is a historic district. This is a beautiful opportunity to make something special here. And that is what I want to see, and what the committee and the Heritage Commission want to see, is a pride of place and a love of community that will drive the building in the historic district. I don't know who's been to Spring City, but if you have, it is a wonder. I mean, it
Yes.
is just a beautifully historic, preserved community.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm gonna call them and find out what their things say. They don't have any. They don't have any guidelines, because the people that live there are so proud of it that they don't need them. Everything that comes in, every home that is done so beautifully because they love that community. So
So-
that's what I'd like to see here.
I have another question, like with the Merck.
Mhm.
There could be a plaque put on that building as this is what it was used, this is when it was built, that kind of thing. And would that make it a landmark?
Probably a landmark.
That's what, yeah, it wouldn't be, it's not on the National Historic Registry, but we could, I mean, anybody can hang a plaque on their house if they want, say whatever they
Well,
want about their house.
But
So
it
the
is a
landmark
historic
is,
area. It
the
is a
landmark is
historic
not
area.
defined by the state or the national, like the National Historic Registry of Homes is part of the National Park Service. So that is what drives that, and it's very difficult to get a home on that registry. But the landmark homes, that's up to Santa Clara City, what defines a landmark home, and which homes do we deem as landmark homes. So that's something that can and needs to be done, in my opinion, for the historic district. And that's something that I know that the Heritage Commission, at least Mandy and I, would be willing to work on that.
It's kind of a logical next step.
It
Once you
is.
get the guidelines to
Yeah.
start going through and identifying those homes.
So anyway, should we move on to the next question? Okay,
Well,
next question, and you go through and read those comments.
There's some fun.
They're on,
But-
yeah.
They were. I just
Okay.
wish that would have, back to that other question, it would have been interesting for me to know if respondents were willing to have city funds go towards some of that rehabilitation, because I don't think that's clear in the question, and I understand that's not
Right.
a totally
I thought of
scientific
that.
question, but I would have been interested to know
Well, I'm sure they would be. I
if they
mean,
wanted to.
Yeah, I'm sure they would be, but my
Where would those
understanding is the city
Understanding that they're
doesn't
their
have any.
funds Too, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, those are taxpayer funds.
Yeah,
And where
ask
would
them
those come
if
from?
they're,
Yeah.
if they would support a tax increase to fund
Yeah,
historic preservation.
Yeah.
And all of that could be something down the line,
Mhm.
you know, because I don't think that that's an impossible idea.
I don't
I mean,
either.
for sure.
I would like to know where residents are on it. It's all good
Yeah.
and well to say, this is what we want,
Yeah.
but we need to know.
But are you willing to
Are
help
we
pay
willing
for
to
it?
help? Exactly.
Yeah. And I think that there's other creative ways. I mean, I know that there's things that can be done through, my husband's an estate planning attorney, and he has done this for other people throughout the state with, say, ranches. that they want to keep they want it to always be a ranch. And so there's benefits as they deem it that, and they donate it and blah, blah, blah. I don't know all the details, but I know that there are options for families for different things. So anyway, we can discuss that another day, but let's move on. How important is it to you that open space is maintained in the Santa Clara Historic District? Again, 80%, extremely important, very important. Please rank the following items listed below that you believe are most important to preserve in the Santa Clara Historic District, with 1 being the most important and 8 being the least important. So you can see historic buildings, number 1, large shade trees, number 2, sidewalks, walkability, the 2-lane road, which that brings a whole other stuff. I know that, but that is, that's a priority for a lot of people. Small businesses, parking, real grass lawns, affordable housing being at the bottom. So with that being said, with that information, for us, it just reinforced the idea that what we're doing on this committee is important. It's wanted, it's needed. The community wants to see the Santa Clara Historic District preserved in some way. What's that going to look like? And that's what the city needs to, decide, and we're grateful that we can kind of help start that process or continue that process. Okay. Any questions or comments before I tell you what we're doing now?
We're on pins and needles.
Okay, all right. So if you had a chance to read the current historic district guidelines, they mostly focus on residential preservation. And if someone wants to paint their house or change the windows or things like that, it really hasn't addressed commercial development, new commercial buildings. And so that's kind of what we're focusing on first. After going through these different guidelines that I mentioned, seeing what these cities have done, and granted Salt Lake City is huge, but because they're so big, they have really refined what they've done that can give us some helpful resources. First of all, we've talked about the difference between shall and should. And where we're talking about guidelines, not codes, we can still use shall and should in the guidelines. You shall follow these America's historic colors, or that's just an example. You should do X and Y. So we're using those shall and should to help things that we feel are very important be a shall, things that are not as important be a should. We've decided on 8 categories, commercial district guideline categories. And I think at the end of the day, some of them might be condensed, under maybe an umbrella of a few less than this. But let me read you what these are. Site history, site features, site design and orientation, residential compatibility, storefront and facade elements, awnings and canopies, windows and bulkheads, doors and entrances, building design, architectural character, building materials, building form, mass, and scale, which I think is huge. Having it be a personal scale, what fits into the people walking down the street, what fits into what's currently there. Building colors, roof design, lighting, signage, which I know there is a specific ordinance for signage, streetscape elements and landscape design, which would include the trees, the preservation of the sycamore trees, parking, and mechanical equipment. So those are the categories that we are talking about currently. We made it through the first 10 at our meeting yesterday.
So there's 18. right
There's
now
18.
for commercial that
Yeah.
we're working through.
And
Yeah.
Jim is going to take what he's researched and some of what we've discussed and start putting those together. And then once we've done that, our plan is then to seriously review the current guidelines that we have, see what we need to incorporate into the residential that we've discussed in these commercial, and any updates that we feel are needed there. So that's our plan. Jim, anything else?
We're sticking to it.
Yeah.
There's more to come. We don't have a draft yet, but we hope to in early March. And then we'll move forward from there because we have to adopt by early May.
So
And
does
this- I
anyone
mean,
have any
the-
questions?
The committee will make recommendations to the Heritage Committee, the formal
Yes.
Heritage Committee.
Yeah,
They'll make a recommendation to the Planning Commission and it'll come to council.
right. And the
Public
way
hearing.
we're looking at it right now is guidelines using should. Sorry. should-
Shall and should.
Sorry, yes, shall and should. I'm writing it. I should know that. Sorry. Shall and should. And we found that the others in Salt Lake City and Heber City and others have guidelines as well, but they utilize the shall and should, and it works. And so that's the way we would bring it to you. It wouldn't be city ordinance. They'd be design guidelines. So I don't know, have to get legal counsel's advice on this, on the process to getting those adopted. I would think it would just be through public meetings since it's not city code. Matt, what are your thoughts?
Sorry, you'll have to repeat the question.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I was reading something else when you said that.
We're working on our design guidelines at this point, rather than standards. We're utilizing shall and should, like
Right.
other examples we've seen from other communities who have them in the form of guidelines. And I would imagine that as they work their way through the process, Heritage Commission, then Planning Commission, and then Council, they would be adopted as guidelines. We could have public meetings, but it's not city code where it's a public hearing. It's a separate document like we have right now that is a partner or, a companion to our code. After this is adopted, we have to go and make the changes to the development code to tie
Right.
everything together. That'll be the second step once we get the guidelines adopted.
Yeah, especially with respect to the shalls.
Yeah.
Right. We
Yes.
need to have some kind of teeth in the city code
Yeah.
that says you will comply with the requirements of these design guidelines. Not so much with the shoulds. Those are for guidance
Right.
and so on. But
And the should would allow, let's say it's a situation where there's a certain percentage of masonry and they can, we have a guideline or a range that you should use this much brick or stone traditional. They may come in and say, we want to use a little more of this type of material because it's more modern. And so that's something that we would take a look at, but vet it through the process of Heritage, Planning Commission, and Council. The same steps we currently take.
yeah,
So
that's right.
it's not a given. They still have to go through the process. So.
Any other, Krista, did you have a question?
Well, just a question for Matt. So if they're guidelines, they're not enforceable until they're in code, is that right?
That's correct. I mean, and that's why that distinction between the shalls and the shoulds is important because, there's a different level of enforceability there. And that's also why we need to tie, once the design guidelines are determined, we need to tie that back to something in the code that will allow the city to enforce those as essentially extensions of the code. Because the design guidelines by themselves, they just don't have any.
Which is the problem that we have now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So time-wise, just for my own information, once these are adopted, once the guidelines are adopted and they have shalls and shoulds, at what point and what's the process of adjusting the code to correlate to
have
that?
public hearings and make all the adjustments to the code. So that's another process. And it might take 3 to 6 months to get all those updated.
It could, although I think we could do some of it in parallel. I mean, it just depends on how fast.
Well, I'll start sending
Right.
stuff to you because all I can do right now is the guidelines.
Right.
So,
Right. But I mean, if it's just a matter of adding a line to the code somewhere that
Yeah.
says, that applicants will, comply with the
Yeah.
express requirements of the design guidelines. We may be able to do that at the same, maybe even at the same meeting that those are adopted by the city council,
Okay.
So
We're just
we'll
trying to.
We'll just have to play that by ear.
Right. The mayor's direction was get these guidelines done or these standards, whatever they are. That's
Right.
task number one.
We want to have the ordinance stuff right behind it.
Yeah.
We don't want a big void. I mean, we're on the timeline. We don't want a big void between the two.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions or comments, or do you have any information that you think would be helpful for the committee?
I'm looking forward to your first draft.
I am too.
No problem.
Are we planning to have a public hearing ahead of?
I think we'll have a public meeting, maybe a town hall, where The guidelines can be presented, questions can be asked informally without the public hearing will happen when we start to codify everything. But I'd like to have a public meeting just to get it out there. Let some people come in and comment. We could break out into smaller groups to where it's not the formal march to the podium and repeat what was just said. That you can take the committee and split them into multiple groups, put council and plan commission in there with them, and hopefully have a nice work setting, an informal work setting where here's my thoughts, here's your response, here's how we're addressing that in the book, and kind of get the word out so that when we do get to the public hearings, we got an educated public, that they understand what we're doing, or at least we've given them the opportunity.
And I think that that was one of the benefits of the survey, is it's put in their mind that, hey, this is something the city's working on, and they've started to think about it, you know, and it's not going to be a surprise. Jim and I just talked time frame, and we thought draft done by the end of March, and then that gives April to go through all of the city processes, tweak it, make any adjustments necessary. So by the end of April, it's done and ready to meet the May 8th deadline.
That's the goal.
Somewhere in that range, or maybe a week or two. difference,
Right,
but
yeah.
Somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
We might have to have a special meeting or two, like you're saying, Mayor. I don't know how else to do it under this timeline, so.
So I've got a question. So historic heritage land use committee, what's that one? Land use or whatever.
We have the city council, and there's a planning commission that is the land use authority for certain elements. Jim's the land use authority for certain elements, and it's all defined in the code. Then we have the Heritage Committee, which is the formal committee that's been around forever, that meets and reviews projects. When a project application comes in, they meet, discuss it, do their site visits, make a recommendation to Planning Commission. And anything in the historic district has to start there to come through. So did that answer your question, Janine?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
And then council
Yep.
as well after a
Council's
recommendation.
we make the code. So we approve the code and put the regulations in place that can be enforced.
Yeah, it was interesting because Heber City, and you've all been there, they have a good set of design guidelines as well. And they vet everything through their planning commission. The planning commission is the authority for the whole historic district. I like our process better, where we get more eyes on it. We've got our heritage, our planning commission, and council, not just one group.
Oh, that's good.
So I do want to recognize, well, Mimi's here. Mimi's the chair of this special committee, but the other members that are on the committee, David Levitt, Mandy Gubler, Penny Willard, Sharice Smith, Shelley Harris from the Planning Commission, Sheldon Whitworth. Kim Campbell is the professional. He's the architect that Jim described. And we asked Kelly Graff to participate, and he told me he would, but he hasn't. And so when he comes to protest it at the end, I'll save that for him.
That's right.
We've got a good group. We have 10 or 12 strong every time.
And
we meet,
I appreciate
yeah.
them, and I want you to take that back to them, that
I
we
will,
appreciate
thank you.
the work that they're doing, because this is a big time commitment. A few of them were hesitant. They didn't know if they had the time, but they all said yes. And that was the best part of it, was they agreed to do it and take it
Yeah,
on.
well, and I'll tell you that the ones that are there are really putting in the time. They're coming prepared, they're researching, and they're coming and, you know, making contributions. So it's good.
They're
Thanks.
good, Mayor. And I will say this, Mimi should run all meetings. They start at 5, they end at 6:30.
We don't mess around.
They
in
do
there.
not mess around, but I did have one question, and from yesterday's meeting, and I wanted to ask, but you had a lot you were going through. So you were talking about designs and eras, and you've walked the downtown, you've talked all through this, and it sounds like instead of just nailing down one architecture that's specific to Santa Clara, you're looking at a variety of kind of an era. Can you maybe?
Sure. Santa Clara doesn't really have one era, one specific era. And when you think about it, there's one commercial building. It's the Merc. That's the only commercial building that's left. There might have been some others, but they're gone. And do we want every new commercial building in Santa Clara to look like the Merc? No. So I think what people in the responses that I've heard and read, people love the character of the small houses. They love the charm of Santa Clara. So what we feel like is if we said, okay, you know, mid 1800s when it was founded to mid 1900s, maybe 1950 and before, because really that's what it is. You have the Jacob Hamblin home, you have the older stucco homes that are I don't even know what they're called, the Federalist is what I want to say, but I don't know, you know, just the little pioneer homes. Then you have the cottages like the Whitwer home and the ones with the peaked gables and the brick, you know, there's that era. And then you go on to the ranch style. And that's when you start to get out of what most people consider historic, even though it is. But so in answer to your question, what we've kind of thought is that we want to focus on founding of Santa Clara to mid 1900s, and a variety would be good.
And that's what we've seen is 19th century to mid 20th century. Is what we've
small,
seen.
you know, some of the homes like the Garden Sprout, you know, or the Swoon next door, you know, those are old homes that have been turned into businesses. They look beautiful. They're amazing. We don't change a thing. But then you're going to have new construction too. So if you can have new construction that can fit in with that older, I think there's a lot of styles that would be appropriate. You know, you can have craftsman style, you can have, you know, just there's a lot of different styles because Santa Clara doesn't have one specific style. So I don't know if that answers your question.
No, I thought it was fantastic.
And some of those styles, just for kicks and giggles, we have the crosswing style starting in the 1880s. We've got bungalows, just like they have up in Salt Lake. We've got period cottages. And we have ramblers. We have pre-1950, not ramblers, ranch style homes. And then we have after the 1950s style. So it changes very much. So it is a bit of
and writing guidelines that address all of those, that's the trick. But to me, that's why things like scale, those are really important. Because, you know, you can have something that looks very different than the Merc, but as long as it fits in with the scale and the proportions of the buildings around it, it's going to look good. And if you have a few key elements like windows, doors, those things really make a difference. You know, if you have windows that have bulkheads on the bottom and transoms on the top and a wooden door, boom, you've already got, you know, a lot of the historic elements. And then you can do a whole new things on top of those to make it a little bit more modern, but you have some basic historical elements is what I'm
And our architect,
thinking.
Kim Campbell, kind of alluded to it yesterday in our meeting, but it didn't quite say it. You know, America was built with 1- and 2-story buildings on corners in communities and towns. And you look at the old architecture, they're 1-story buildings on corners. That's what was put in place to start cities and communities throughout the US. Later on, things expanded and people went multiple stories, but it's not uncommon to see that 1-story type of shop in a historic district and 2 stories as well. So.
He also said stay away from the 60s and 70s. That's when the architecture went to pot. That's exactly what he said.
The 60s.
Hey.
60s and 70s.
Hey, I grew up during that time period, and I hate to say this, but I like it, and I think I'm pretty historic.
But I like because you start looking through there, it gives a developer, a homeowner, a real variety of options, and literally would give our downtown some
character.
There's some cool. I said, I know Tani's. I mean, she's already. Oh, let's go do. I mean, she'll. You know, and that's what's going to happen. You're going to find people that really want to do it. It's not about making money at that.
It's a labor of love at that point.
It is because but if you love it and you want to do it, you're going to do it. So,
like we've heard from the Gooblers, it was not just double, triple, 4 times the cost to get what they wanted, you know, to make it look like it once was.
And that's where we have to really identify the properties for remodel, because that's when you're asking. I mean, it really is to renovate. You're looking double and triple.
Right.
To get it. Now, some buildings may require that. And so, but that's where you have to really look at that when you're going into tear out plumbing and electrical to update an existing Adobe building. It's hard to do.
And some may choose to do it. Others may come in and say, I'd like a demolition permit, but these are my plans. And I want to build something that looks like a 1920s cottage. And then hopefully we work with that person to get them to where they want to be.
Yeah.
It's a great committee, Mayor. You've done well.
Thank you, Mimi.
You bet.
We
Thank you.
appreciate you being here.
Thanks so much.
Okay, item number 4, council, was a discussion and action to consider an agreement with Santa Clara City and St. George Cities Consolidated Communications Center. Lance was to be here to lead that presentation. He has been at the legislature all day with the EMS bill and is not back yet. And so Brock's asked to table that item until our next meeting.
Yeah, well, so he left us some bullet points, and Matt put together this agreement with St. George and mainly to the dispatch. There's questions into it that Matt and I can't answer to more of the details that you will probably have. And so we felt that it was best to table that and have it when Lance is here and could really get to it. Because some of the things he talks about in this is what he does. We provide public safety data warehousing and business intelligence and analytics, but we can't tell you exactly what that exactly entails. I know he's been working with dispatch, some stuff that he's created for us that dispatch really likes and wants to use. And so that's kind of what I know at the moment. So it's probably that we felt best to have him come back and present to you. So.
Okay, I just need a motion to table item 4.
A motion that we table item 4.
Second.
Got a motion by Dave and a second by Ben to table item 4 until Lance can be here. Any question on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Item number 5, Mayor and Council reports. Ben?
Mayor, I attended, you were there, the Flood Control Authority. I think we spoke at our budget retreat. So that we did have that, and we did get awarded for take out sediment there at Little League. Finally, that'll be a fun one. When do they start? 26. Oh yeah, that'll be good. So I did attend last night's meeting with the historical committee there for the downtown, and it's a good meeting. So I've been to 2 of them. They're basically meeting every other Tuesday, and then I stay quiet. I know that's hard to believe for everybody, but I do stay quiet and I just listen.
Somebody videoed that.
That is. I wanted to. I keep my computer, so I stay busy there. But they're doing a great job. We need to give Jim probably the month of July off because he's going to earn. It's a lot of work, and we've got to, like I said, there's going to be strong feelings on both sides when it comes to us, but it needs to be done, as Mimi said, and it can be done right to where, it'll be a good thing. And I think that's all I was going to share.
Okay, thank you, sir. Janine, anything?
Yeah. Hey, I had a great time meeting some NFL players. That was kind of fun being in Vegas. But I also learned a lot when we had that UAMPS. That meeting was really interesting for me to learn all about our electricity and all our stations and where, there's a lot to it that I didn't know. So that was really cool. I actually wanted to be at the Heritage Committee last night, or the Historic Committee last night. I was planning to go. I was also going to go to the Transportation Expo during the day, and I got too sick, so didn't go, didn't make it.
That happens.
Thanks, Dave. I'm just teasing.
I deny it all.
Krista?
I attended our LPC meeting this week. Obviously, we're looking at several bills or watching them, but I wanted to let you know that HB 306 from Representative Ward, the one that requires cities to approve zoning requests for 8 units per acre, is probably not going to go forward, which is great news. SB 185, that requires cities to allow other building inspectors to inspect properties. They're working on that one, trying to make that a little more palatable to cities. So we'll watch that one as it comes along. There are 3 or 4 bills, numbered and unnumbered, coming forward, trying to make housing more affordable for people. We've heard from Steve Waldrop several times about that, so we'll be watching that closely, and I think there might be some good ideas there, but I will keep you posted. And then I attended State of the City for St. George yesterday. They did a great job. And have a lot of exciting things coming up, so.
Have we heard when Chamber wants to do one out here? I haven't heard
No.
anything. It's been crickets. Maybe we missed the schedule.
Well, I think Washington did their own this year, as did St. George.
So the Chamber's not involved in it anymore.
I
So
think
don't
they
wait for them.
can be, but they're not. I don't know. I can ask for sure. I've been wondering as well.
Follow up.
I mean, do you
Do
want
you
one, Mayor?
want to
That's
do
the real
one?
question. It's
Do I
really
wanna
your
do one?
deal.
Yes, because we can put one on ourselves.
Mayor Randall did ask
you and
when
I
ours
can-
was going to be, so she would like to
When,
know.
well, will anybody come?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm happy to do one. I actually enjoy making the staff work to get me ready to deliver that event. Not as many, Jim. But no, I'm fine doing it. We want to look at a date that works. Probably sometime first of next month, maybe, or something.
And I really
Talk about
liked
it.
how St. George, they stream there so I could watch it online.
Mhm.
So if we could do that, that would help a lot with attendance. If people can't make it, they can still check on it later.
Christelle just left when we started talking about it. She blew out of here. That won't save her. Okay, well, we can work on a day for that. Dave?
Yeah, so Monday I attended the solid waste board meeting. They had a presentation. They're looking at some bioenergy development with the landfill. So versus the way that it is now, they've just got the methane gas burning up a stack and stuff. And so they're looking at options with some different companies. There's different things they can do. They can, there's companies that will come in and refine it to natural gas. They pump it back into the high pressure lines. There's also the ability to generate, do some electricity generation from the gas. So we sent the company that came and did the presentation, we sent them back for some more information, just with some of the stuff that they wanted to do in addition to doing the electricity. It just, to me, there were some red flags going up there, but overall, I like the option of another resource of potentially, some additional electricity generation and being able to tie that into the grid. So.
Cool. Anything else?
Nope.
Jared?
That's it.
Just a couple of things. I attended a mosquito abatement meeting and I am the chair once again. So we'll keep rolling with that. I'm happy to report that they did like a kind of a summation of the budget of last year, and they ended up spending 89% of the budget. So they were able to put away about $100,000 in their capital facilities fund. So district is still being run very efficiently. I had Lena Mathis reach out and ask about bicycle registration on our website. And I wasn't even aware that we did bicycle registration, but sure enough, if you go on our website and go to all the forms, it actually takes you over into the police department's website. No, I'm saying that wrong. If you click on public safety, it takes you to the Ivins website. But if you go to our forms on our website, it takes you to an actual form that's like an Ivins City, how to register your bicycle. And so maybe we just need to decide if that's an Ivins only thing, or if that's a Santa Clara thing. And she was just thinking with how expensive electric bikes are, it might be nice to have a registry. So if the police picked one up, they could take it to the right person. So maybe that's just an internal staff thing. You guys could decide if that's only for Ivins, or if we need to have our own form that has Santa Clara city letterhead on it, or if you want to register bicycles. And I don't even know if they charge for it or not. It's not even clear on the form, but she just brought that up, that I thought that was a good idea to at least consider. And then I just wanted to share one other assignment I have, we don't have on that form from our last meeting, is going to the Utopia meetings. And so
That's intuitively obvious, most
Yeah.
casual observer walking by on the street who our
Yes.
representative is on Utopia.
I'm just saying my assignments looked a little thin, I think, on that day, and I thought, oh, I do have one more on there. So anyways, this subscriber report, if you look down at your Acrobat, you can see there's the portfolio open in the subscriber report. If you want to pull it up, you can, and we can go through it here. This is a report that's given every meeting to the board. And I get to attend the meetings. I'm not part of the board, but I get to listen in. And so just that residential take rate, that's probably the meat and potatoes of the report. And so you can see if there's a star next to it, they're under the 2 years, that they're not to build out, or they're at build out, but still under the 2 years before payments have to be made on the bond. So we're in company with Bountiful and Bozeman and Pleasant Grove, Syracuse, Clearfield. And you can see that our number is pretty low compared to everybody else, except for Bountiful for our take rate. So Roger actually spent probably 5 minutes of the meeting addressing that. And so I just wanted to sum up what he told the board about Santa Clara. So he said the take rate is always slow on new projects. And then he did say Santa Clara has been unique because the incumbent carriers were very aggressive and locked residents into long-term contracts. He did say that they're planning to ramp up marketing in Santa Clara soon, and they're going to push hard. He also said a new provider is going to be joining the system that's local to Southern Utah, so that'd be another pull. And then he said lots of the new development is in the queue to be signed up on the fiber. There's been really good communication between Utopia and the developers of projects. And then he said, he just summed up and he said he's confident that Santa Clara will be a very good project. It's just lagging a bit right now. And I think I agree. I've had several residents reach out, like their contract just ended, and what do we do? I've heard there's fiber in Santa Clara. What do we do? And so I've been really careful in that process to say, you've got fiber from TDS, you got fiber from CenturyLink, plus there's all the providers on Utopia. And so anyways, I think, yeah, it's definitely lagging, but I think they're concerned about it, but they're not overly concerned about it. It's probably the way I would describe it, the way the board has reacted to it. But they definitely recognize that there's a few challenges here, that we ended up with 3 fiber networks in this city through that whole process, where most of these cities just have the one fiber network. So it's a little bit different dynamic. And if you want to scroll through, you can kind of see, we're not even in the charts yet, those first charts. Overall, Utopia and UIA are doing really, really well financially and on their subscriber reports. We're on page 19. So that just shows our residential availability. I believe we're fully built out at this point. And then it shows the number of subscribers and then our take rate. And I think a good comparison would be the next city, Syracuse. It's obviously a much bigger city than us, but you can kind of see, if you go down just one more page, Brock, to Syracuse, you can kind of see how their availability kind of ramped up. We're kind of just one big step, but then you can see their total subscribers and their take rate. It just takes time. And Roger did say a lot of times it is just someone assigned a 2-year contract or something to get their router for free or something like that. And so it just takes time to have people be able to switch if they'd like to. Any questions?
The take rate where it has a drop, did they actually have people jump off the system?
So for Santa Clara, so the take rate is kind of a funny thing. That's based off of availability of subscribers. So whenever they open a new area,
that number
there's way more availability, which drops your take rate. That's what that is.
So as they phased it on, that long delay in getting the valley ready is probably what that drop is when
Right.
they finally brought it on. Okay, all right, that makes sense.
And we can expect that they'll work hard. And to be honest, we're kind of the guinea pig for Southern Utah if they're going to be able to do this in the other cities. And so I really think we'll get a really strong effort from them to ensure the project's successful.
Right.
And then is this something you guys want regularly, or this is the first one I've ever done because we actually have some real data?
I would say, yeah, quarterly or.
Yeah, there's a quarterly meeting with them and they always give this to us. So
Just give us an update after every quarterly meeting.
it wouldn't have to be this in depth, but we'll plan on that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. And then that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Jarrett. We had Water District Administrative Committee met a couple of weeks ago after City Council. They presented some of the new things that the district is doing. It was a pleasant meeting. The better meeting happened. Me and Brock did a one-on-one with Ed Bowler and Zach Renstrom and talked about, kind of pursued the discussion that had happened at City Council in the email that I'd sent the district after the landscape ordinance revisions. And we got some commitments from the district to do better and to support the city, make us feel like we belong and not on the bad list. Assured us that we're not on the bad list. So it was a good meeting, and I think we'll see some positive effort come out that way. The Flood Control Authority met. We got that $500,000 for Tuacahn Wash, which was great. The UAMPS meeting I thought was very informative, and I want to thank the council. Our city council was the best represented city council there, and it was. It always makes me proud when I look out and go to the UAMPS meetings, and Santa Clara is very strongly supported there, and a lot of the other cities don't show it all, not even some of their staff. And so thank you. I appreciate you taking that time to get trained. I appreciate what the staff did at the budget retreat. It's gonna be interesting when we see the numbers come back. We had a follow-up meeting with Ivan City, Brock and I and Matt, and Councilman Shakespeare and Jarrett were there. We're forming kind of a little special committee that's going to meet a couple times a month and talk about the issues with the public safety budget, with fire, and try and get things on track there, answer each other's questions. We all went away with assignments. There's a bunch of unknowns that I still have that I think we're trying to get answers to, but there is some effort going on there. Going forward, I want to start working you into that. That is your liaison, so we'll talk about how to do that.
Yep.
And I don't know that I've got anything else. If I forgot anything, I think so. You think? Okay. All right. All right, staff. Anybody got something burning a hole in their pocket? We appreciate Debbie being here. It's always nice to see your smiling face in person. So we appreciate that. How's the budget coming? It's early yet, right?
It's early.
It's early. That's right. Okay, anybody from staff got anything? Rob? Matt? Chris? Oh, geez, I'm back to the agenda.
I would ask Dustin. Dustin, did you go to the transportation?
Yes.
expo? I kind of
Yes.
wanted to hear about it.
Me and the mayor were both there to meet.
Nagi
Zanotti.
Zanotti, the transportation commissioner from our area, beating him up about funding for the Western Corridor.
Really?
We didn't get any money, but we got his full support.
He just said move forward with the environmental and get the
Good.
design done.
Yeah.
And then he'll go to bat for us. So it was productive.
It's a good, if you haven't ever been to the Transportation Expo, it's interesting. A lot of different transportation projects, a lot of different booths. You can learn a lot. You can kill a whole day there if you take the time. And then Mayor Randall's State of the City is kind of dovetailed into it. So it was good. Anything else, council? Any other questions?
I wanted to ask you about the thing that you sent out to us about some ribbon cutting or groundbreaking.
Oh, the FKC is the dialysis center that is approved up at the corner of Lava Flow Drive and Santa Clara Drive behind Lammy's. There's a new kidney dialysis center that is breaking ground. You probably noticed they've got their permits, plans approved. There's work happening on the site. Their formal groundbreaking is next.
It's Friday. I think it's Friday.
Is it Friday?
Tuesday.
I thought it was next week.
Yeah, I think it was on Wednesday.
It's either Tuesday or
It's
Wednesday of
Tuesday the
next week.
20th.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was next week. And you're all invited. It's at 10:30 in the morning. It won't be very long. They've asked me to say a few words. So it'll be really short.
I believe it's only the third one in our area. St. George has 2. I know this because I have an aunt that has to go 3 times a week for 4 hours. She's old and ill and can't do a kidney transplant. So it's a needed service.
And I think it's a good idea having one in Santa Clara. To make it so the people out here that need it have got one close. They don't need to always travel into St. George. So anyway, the contractors invited us. If anybody wants to come, we'll see you there at 10:30. Anything else? Okay, all I need is a motion. We don't have executive session, correct? I just need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion. Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Got a motion by Janine, a second by Jarrett to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. We're done. Thanks, everybody. That's a perfect length meeting. Hour and a
Great
half.
work. Very nice, everybody.
Keep it all at like
Hey,
4 items or
good
less.
work on that. I know you're doing it. We're trying.
Yes.
And table one of them. Let us table the hard one.
On the UI update.
I was happy to hear.
So Rogers told me, and